welcome everybody to the Aftermath. Today, my name is Petros. Today, I'm going to be interviewing Martae Ruelas. Martae, welcome to the Aftermath, man. Thank you for doing this. We kind of did this short notice. Well, it was a really short notice, but it's cool that you were able to do it, same day that I asked you to. So it's good that it worked out that way.
Of course, man. I was kind of taking a not a day off, but I think I had time to just take a breather between debates. So I have I think the last thing that I did was I got jumped by a bunch of black folk the other night. It says at a debate that was pretty controversial. And then I have Destiny. I'm debating Destiny on WIC TV on the 28th. So that'll be coming up. So kind of taking a little bit of a break, but I always say that. And then I just had a panel today where I was doing debates. So I don't know. I'm kind of random at times, but
okay. Well, thanks for having me. I definitely want to get to your debate, your debating career that you have online right now. But before that, we were kind of chatting a little bit before we went live, and I guess now that we're on, I want to just kind of hear your background, like kind of just like summary, and we can kind of go from there. I mean, I don't want to. It doesn't necessarily have to be two things. I just figure regular conversation. I kind of want to get to know you a little bit. So for people that might be listening, I found out about Martae through Andrew Wilson because him and Andrew did a 2v2 debate recently, like in the past couple months. And so I started following him on Twitter because I'm pretty active on Twitter now. And so I was in a space with him earlier today, like in the morning, something like that, early afternoon, and I hit him up and we kind of set this up pretty short notice. So yeah, Martae, if you could just take a few minutes, man. I'd love to know about you, your background, how you got started in the YouTube debating sphere, obviously, but then like way before that, where are you from? I know you live in Arizona. So I'm in the Pacific Northwest. I'm in Washington State. So yeah, man.
Yeah, my name is Martae Ruelas, or IFBB Pro Martae Ruelas. I am originally a Phoenician, and I grew up homeless. We were poor. I had a family. I want to say had, but I ran away from home at a very early age, got picked up off the streets, sleeping on the streets, and got put in shelters and group homes. Very long story, but just to get to the point, the only family I had were coaches in track, even when I ran track in college, things like this. And then I got into law enforcement for about approximately like 11, 12 years. But after that, during that whole time, I turned pro in the IFBB and then said, well, if I'm going to sign this contract as a pro athlete and then travel and compete and do all this, I had probably 7 sponsorship deals as an amateur. I was undefeated for a very, very long time, 3 different weight classes, and turned pro my second time at a national show, which is extremely rare. And then after that, I just kind of resigned from that department at that time. Then I got into law enforcement adjacent after that, but it was only after a time of me competing for a while. Then I turned pro in a sport called Super League, which is also another world-class sport. I had to beat a world record holder to get on Team USA. We beat Team Canada. That was a pretty fun time. Nike also sponsored the sport. And then after that, I started doing talk shows, not talk shows, but interviews as an athlete. And one of the interviews I got on, I started having a debate with the person who was interviewing me. And the debate was about relationships. It was such a contentious debate that it ended up being a really good show because bodybuilding is boring. This was probably, I don't even know. It was probably maybe 2018, 2019, around that time.
Okay, yeah.
And I started getting asked to do other interviews and podcasts just about relationship dynamics and things like this. I paid attention to the Red Pill movement as far as I think a couple of people who are figureheads or separate people who are fractioned off of the red pill and created their own podcast, things like this. I started talking to these different people and started showing up on couches and talking, but not as a pro athlete. I'm so used to doing interviews as a pro athlete that by the time I got on different couches, it wasn't about that. It was about something controversial I had said on a different podcast. And then after that, things just started skyrocketing. And then, I kind of ran into Andrew around these circles and stuff, and found out that he was an Orthodox Christian. The crazy thing is, not to run on this long tangent,
that's fine.
I found out he's Orthodox Christian after deep diving a little bit, because he doesn't lead with saying, I'm an Orthodox Christian and I'm going to evangelize. That's not what we see. We just see a guy who looks like a blue collar worker who's no different from anybody else on the street. He got up there and just started dismantling people and destroying these people. And he was using a really simple logical entailment. And then he brought up things called the 3 rule of logic. He started bringing up all these things, and it started clicking to me and it started making sense. And I was like, you know what? I like this guy because mainly I can relate to him. He seems like somebody that I would be working alongside with in some industrial plant or something like that. Just your average run-of-the-mill person. Once I found out he was Orthodox, I started looking into Orthodox parishes, and I reached out to him online. We started talking, and next thing you know, I ended up being his coach. And now I do like his diet, his training program. I help Rachel out a little bit with this too. And you remember when I said I didn't have family growing up? Mm-hmm. Well, the Wilsons are my family. So they're like a blood family to me.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So you've known Andrew now. How many years have you known Andrew?
I would say maybe a year and a half, I would say, roughly.
Okay. Yeah. So
well, I think it might have been more. It might have been a little bit more than that, but I'll just say a year and a half just to be safe.
Sure. Wow. Okay. So Andrew, not to just a real quick on like Andrew, I started seeing Andrew pop up in my shorts, like because he would do the Whatever podcast, and it was interesting because I happened to come across his live stream when he was live streaming on his channel, and he was like smoking a cigarette and drinking a beer, and I'm like, wait, is this that dude that was on I was like, is this the Christian dude that was on the Whatever podcast? And he was talking about Christianity. And keep in mind, I was just watching the shorts. So I wasn't even watching his long forum when he was on the Whatever podcast. But
the long format content?
Yeah. I have, but not when I would see his shorts on Whatever. But then when I saw his live stream and he was just kicking back beers and just like being very like, he was talking like a regular working class guy. And so I was like, this guy's like really intriguing. So I listened more and I loved what he kept saying. And then, now I'm a big fan of his and of Rachel's. I bought Rachel's book and all that. And so been learning about, feminism and how much I despise it. So anyway, but I want to get back to you though, man. You said that so it sounded like you were kind of brought up in the foster care system.
I wouldn't say foster care. I'd say like shelters and then group homes after that.
Okay. Yeah. And so when did you get into bodybuilding? How old were you?
Crap. I don't even know. I think it was like my early 20s. I started getting into bodybuilding, but it was after, I was in college. Late, yeah. I was in college and but I played sports. I was wrestling and I was running track in college. But the thing was that I always had decent calves and I always had muscles. Mm-hmm. The only thing is I didn't know jack about bodybuilding. I picked up this book called The Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding that Arnold Schwarzenegger had produced. I mean, maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was some publishing studio, whatever. But it's called The Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding. And it has like these generic diets of bananas in the morning and oats and very simple, right? I didn't know jack about what I was doing. All I knew was cardio was like running track. So I was like, if I run 5 miles a day, maybe I'll get shredded. If I eat everything on this, that's like the worst way to get ready for a bodybuilding contest because you're not going to put on muscle running 5 miles a day. But I didn't know anything. So I had stuck to this diet, planned on doing this because one day I was in the gym. This is how I got started. I was in the gym and I always had like a 6-pack. When you're skinny and you got a 6-pack. This woman named Lauren walked up to me and she had like facial hair, a really deep voice. And she was like, you should compete with those abs that you got. And I said, you know what? I don't want to be bothered by this person. I didn't know how to describe them because I thought it was a guy walking up to me. You know, come to think about it, modern day, there's like a relevance to this. We see this in modern day, but back in the day, this was something that I saw because women were taking stuff back then. So of course there's a transitioning thing that happens naturally. So she kept bothering me every time I went to the gym, and I said, "Oh, I gotta pick my different times to show up to the gym." So I just changed up times, and it was like she showed up every time. It was almost like she had a location tracker on me. And she said, "You know what?" She interrupted my workout one time, and I got so pissed. I said, "Will you just let me finish this set?" She said, "I'll stop bothering you when you do this competition on the wall." And I looked up at that and I said, "Ugh. That's kind of gay." She was like, "Are you calling Arnold Schwarzenegger gay?" And I was like, "No." And I was like, "Oh, well, he's not, but he wore the," she was like, "He did the same thing. Just do that and I'll never mess with you again." So that's when I picked up the Arnold, the Encyclopedia Bodybuilding, and started following this diet, running 5 miles a day. And I did this for like 2 months. It was like 2 months away. And then after I completed this diet, showed up, did the registration, everything. I ended up winning the first show that I did as a bantamweight. I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I probably was dancing. I didn't even pose. I had like Cisco's thong song on, and I was like dancing. And the judges were like, "That's the worst posing I've ever seen. You don't even know how to dance. You look like Carlton from The Fresh Prince up here. It not even showing any muscle, just doing the pose." But I looked so good in comparison to everybody else that I won the show. I still have pictures. But after that, I learned how to pose and do everything. But here's the thing, though. I saw Lauren in the audience, this individual. I'll just call him a person, or her a person. She was in the audience screaming, and I was like, "Oh, there goes Lauren," and I won. You know what the crazy part about this is? I never saw them after that day. I never saw them after this day. And I was like, it's almost like they were a figment of my imagination. She never existed. Because I went to the front desk of the gym, and I was like, well, I would have never done this if Lauren didn't push me. I said, "Hey, do you know that buff chick that comes in here? Her name's Lauren." And they always talk all the time. She said, who are you talking about? What?
So the chick that was just on you about getting into bodybuilding, this is that girl.
Yeah.
Wow.
I went to the front desk and they know exactly who she was, or so I thought. I said, "Hey, that real buff chick, Lauren, she came in here. I just wanted to say thank you for inspiring me to do this." They didn't know who I was talking about. So I went to two members who I could have sworn who knew who she was, because they complained about her all the time. And they were like, "What woman? Who are you talking about?" So I was like, I know I'm not going crazy. There was this woman that was bothering
like Russell Crowe. You're like Russell Crowe in A Beautiful Mind.
Yeah, I was like, this woman, this person with this deep voice and facial hair came up. I know you guys were talking to her last week. Who are you talking about? So I was like, whatever. So that's how I got started in bodybuilding.
And so how long did you train before your first competition where you didn't really know what you were doing? Like, how long did you train leading up to that?
Like 2 months.
2 months. Wow.
And I beat people that were doing this for probably it was like the third, fifth year doing this at my weight class. And I just showed up and I didn't even know what I was doing. These people knew how to pose, how to flex the muscle to show it off in the light so the judges can see this. Yeah. I didn't even pose correctly and I destroyed these guys. So
yeah, man. So how did because you said you were also you were in law enforcement. So when did that come into play?
I started in 2013. 2013, I started working, but it was actually in the prison system. That's when I started working. 2008, stopped. Yeah, it was a CO. And then after that, PD after that, Homeland Security. So it's like, I was kind of adjacent. So it's like being in this industry, it's like you could see the branches in the kind of bridges that you build. You know, once you're as CEO, it's like, well, I don't want to kind of play this fake cop thing. Might as well just go apply for something else, because obviously I don't have any felonies if I could work there. I've got a pretty good record. I applied, of course I'm like blowing out their physical standards out the water, and I applied for Mesa PD, Goodyear PD. So I was applying everywhere. Ended up being a pretty decent career, but it's just really heavily political. I'll just say that.
So when you said you got called into an interview, right? But then the interview turned into a debate, right? It kind of turned basically into a debate because you were.
Are you talking about what I was speaking about recently on the panel?
Yeah. So I just kind of wanted to, I guess.
That's a whole nother.
That was a really bad pivot. I just realized what an
awful
segue that was. It's like, and then so I was the cop, and then all right, so let's talk about that. Your first debate. So yeah, that was bad. That was bad segueing.
I had a choice of continuing to debate or not debate, but I was like, it's only a matter of time. I can get terminated for doing this, but I'm just going to keep doing this because I have my religious beliefs. Because I think that if there's nobody in the trenches fighting degeneracy, who's going to do this? And I'm not saying I have to do this because none of us have. We can go into caves in hiding, but it's like I'm on the front lines seeing drugs, seeing fentanyl and all these other things, really bad stuff. But and then I'm a public figure on top of that. I was a pro athlete and I'm doing interviews on top of it. Like I can't avoid talking to people and having my opinions out there. I might as well go full force with this. So why would I stop doing debates? Because anytime I do an interview, I might debate the person who's interviewing me. But you understand, like, there's no way for me to get around this if there's something I disagree with. It just happened to be my nature after that.
Yeah, well, what's really screwed up is that your situation, what happened with you, that's not something that's uncommon. Where people, because you were talking about LGBT, the alphabet people, right? The alphabet mob at work. And I kind of have a feeling of what your stance was and what you were talking about at work, because I imagine that I agree with you pretty much 100% on your views. But what I was getting at was that that's the norm. That's the norm where people, I myself, I do Uber on the side, but I also have a full-time a government job. And so it's the same thing, man. It's the same thing. They're just obviously online is a different world, but when we're just talking about regular everyday jobs, man, there's quite a few things that you really can't speak honestly about if you don't have the status quo opinion, so to speak. So I'm kind of on the same boat right now with my job, where there's a lot of stuff I have to really be careful. And there's been a few instances where it has gotten a little bit contentious, and, you can just sense it right away when they're looking at you, they're giving you that. And you've been here, like, where you just realize you have that realization that, oh, wait, I'm that guy. You know what I mean? I'm that guy, and they're looking at me like, you know what I mean? Like, you're the outcast now because you have the wrong views. So, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to kind of get a little bit more active online. And, I started my channel, and obviously I do want to, I've had one online debate. So I've had one online debate with with an atheist. He runs a YouTube channel and a smaller channel, but we did a debate a few months back. But I want to do more, and I want to get better. So yeah, man. You've had now, well, how many debates would you say you've had in total?
I don't even know. I don't even know if I can count them.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, though, that we have to factor in. Like, what do you consider a debate? We could say YouTube debates. We can say debates on Twitter and Spaces. We can say, so I started off on Threads. There's I think it's a product or the same people that created Instagram have Threads. I was literally like it's funny because it's a cesspool of liberal just mind, right? Yeah, so like when I go on Threads, I'll put up a post that's controversial. And by the way, when I say controversial, I might say something like, same-sex marriage, people can adopt kids. I might say something like that, right? Next thing you know, it'll be like 80,000 views in 3 days, but the comments will be like 15, like it'll be like 5,000 comments, and I'm going down the line, literally destroying every single person, and then they'll respond, and I'll come back way down the line, and I spend like an hour going down here. And what I do is I literally refine my arguments with every single person, and then they'd see that argument that I have, and then with all these minds together, they come up with a really good solid argument, and then it's like I come and just attack this one argument, they'd all converge and help this person out, and it's like me versus like remember when the Matrix, when Neo was fighting 20,000 Agent Smiths? It's almost like this online, and I'm literally debating like 20,000 minds. I'm being hyperbolic here. It's probably like 1,000 people, maybe 500. It was a lot, and they'd all help each other out because the liberal high mind is going to help each other. Hey, sister, I'm in your corner, blue-haired girl. Like, I'm going to help you out too. All because some guy who they think is a bigot has this opinion, and I started debating ferociously on this app and just started doing. And then I started posting these debates and screenshotting them on here. I had a baby deletion debate that I did, destroyed somebody on that, destroyed somebody on this, and I started posting like the logical entailment, how I came to this, the questions that I had, started posting that. And then I was like, okay, I need to really start getting into this. And I started debating on Spaces, which led to me doing debates on YouTube. And it ended up just springboarding from there. Pretty good stuff.
And you, from what I can tell, you seem to debate pretty much similar to Andrew, where you're not just debating, religion, orthodoxy, and all that. Like, you tend to, it seems like you do debates on a variety of topics, right?
Yeah, one thing that I will say is I will not debate orthodoxy. I'm not going to touch it with a 10-foot pole. I don't want to do this. Now, there's a big distinction between like Christianity, meaning like debates like, is Christianity good for the West? I can speak on Christianity being good or bad for the West and say, yeah, it's a good thing if I can be really pragmatic about that. Now, the problem is when we get into like the exegesis of this, if you're translating scriptures and saying that, and you're speaking on behalf of the churches in authority, we can't do that at all. I can't do that. I'd have to go get permission from my father to do that, spiritual father. And I'm a catechumen. He's not giving me permission to do any of this stuff. But here's the reason why I can do that. Why I could say Christianity is good for the nation. Well, for me to say that people can't come kidnap kids and steal them from parents, it's like, well, we're also thinking about Christian tenets. Thou shalt not steal, because these kids belong to somebody, right? So it's like, either way, it's like we have laws that coincide with the 10 commandments. Taking somebody's life, stealing, other things like this. It's like, but to me, you got to think about how our Constitution was formed. The rhetoric of laws was built around Christian ideals to some degree, if you trace this back. So,
would it be fair to say that there's a fine line between, because I think what you're talking about, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but you're talking more of like what Jay Dyer does, which is Christian apologetics, which you have to be very, because Jay is basically kind of, an expert, and, he's well read, obviously, on the history of the church and, like orthodoxy among all the other, sects. So, but that's different than just taking a pro-Christian stance in a debate, right? Because I agree, like, I don't want to, and even if I didn't, I'm still nowhere. I'm certainly not an expert by any means. I discovered, orthodoxy, maybe a couple of years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, just through guys like Dyer and Wilson. And so, I would never want to do, or would be capable. I wouldn't have the skill set to do what Jay does when he just, has these constant Christian apologetic debates. But things like, is Andrew just had a debate with I think a secularist or a atheist about, what's better, should America be a Christian nation or a secularist nation? I
had a debate with that same guy. This John Wick. I don't want to say John Wick because I don't want to do injustice to.
Yeah, he's not cool enough. He's not cool enough for that.
Yeah, he's. I would
I
never
gotta
do
check
that.
that one out too. Then,
Disrespectful to Keanu Reeves.
yeah, yeah,
It's funny because we did like a sliver of the same prompt. I debated him with a guy named Nix. It was Wick, and then it was like another guy, and then Andrew happened to have the same debate adjacent, kind of like just I think it was like should we maintain the status quo of Christian nationalism or just go to Christian nationalism? And me, I was saying that I think it was like, is Christian nationalism better for society? Which I think it's like just a hair off. Like,
yeah,
but yeah, we were doing these debates, but I think with Andrew Wilson, I have to say this. I would have never been an Orthodox Christian and never found the church. I mean, I can't say never, but I think that one of the ways that I found it, or the way that I found it, was through Andrew Wilson. Just he was the one that led me to it. So I think that when people are doing these debates, this is really actually helping people find the Orthodox Church, because they're starting to see the difference between one version of the faith, which could be Protestantism, and then Orthodoxy. So then it's making a lot of sense, because the problem with this is, and people bash debates all the time. I think we're in a space where people are like bashing and down talking debates. Here's the reason why I think debates are extremely important.
Yeah.
When you have two people having a debate and they're having this conflict of ideals and thoughts, and then there's logic exchange from this, you tend to derive certain answers and conclusions from this, because you're going to say, well, Martae's making more sense. He's a little bit more right. And then you see, Aftermath makes another count, and you're like, I've never thought about that before. I never knew this about Orthodoxy. So not only are people learning, but they're learning the distinction of what may be more truth with them. And then they begin this like investigative analysis in their head, to where it's like, all right, let me go find what the true church is, or whatever this is. Yeah. So it changes minds at home. Like, I might not be able to change your mind in a debate, but like the 10,000 people watching at home, those are the minds that are going to be changed because of entertainment, because this could be entertaining, right? So
yeah, no, I agree, man. I think it's super important. And I think debating, it's just fun, it really, and it depends obviously too, because there's different types, and I want to engage in all types. Like, so, there's like the formal debate, kind of the more informal, and then the more like blood sport, where we're just kind of going back and forth. And then like the huge panels, I think they're all fun to just engage with. But I think that, guys like Andrew over these past couple of years, they've really kind of popularized debate in a way, because I think before debate, YouTube debate was kind of its own little kind of subculture, and it still kind of is to a degree. But I think thanks to guys like Andrew and you and Dyer, it's becoming a lot more popular. And now a lot more people, I've noticed, and myself included, there's a bunch of people I'm calling out, online right now about, ducking certain debates. But a lot more people are like wanting, bigger like influencers and stuff to debate, and they want all this, juicy drama, and they want people to go at it and go at each other's throats. So it's all good entertainment too. But I think for Christians, and particularly Orthodox, it's important to really fight back, because I mean, Andrew makes a good point when he talks about how we need to take back, the culture. There's nothing wrong with Christians wanting the culture to be Christian grounded and Christian oriented, and I think there was a time in America where that was the case. It's certainly not right now, but, and I think that also, I think that the bigger, for example, somebody like Tim Pool, I think guys like him, they should be required. I mean, not required, but I think people should be pushing these guys to debate more, because like you take somebody like Tim Pool, he has a massive platform, right? He has a massive audience, massive reach. And up until, guys like Andrew went on and started really kind of pushing him on certain things and really going head to head with him, I don't think certain influencers that like have a big following, I don't think they're used to just like because they're used to being on their show where they're the boss, right? They control everything. And if somebody is going a way that they don't want, they can always just put the hammer down because it's their channel and just kind of pull rank. But I think that it's important if you do kind of become a well-known influencer. I think it's important, especially if you're commenting on like cultural stuff, political stuff, religious stuff. I think you should always be engaging in debates, formal debates, informal, with people who don't have your point of view, to kind of keep you in check, and you shouldn't just be doing it on your show. You should be going on a moderator show like Sarah's channel or something, and having like a third party moderator just to keep things kind of, fair and non-biased. So, man, I wanted to ask you something.
I do want to clear something up though.
Go ahead.
You mentioned apologetics. I don't do apologetics though.
Right. That's what I meant. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I just wanted to kind of clear that up because what happens though is the moment I say I do apologetics, I probably have the ortho bro community coming after me like, I know what you mean. Doing apologetics. Like, this is bad.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was saying. I would not want to. I'm not qualified. I don't have permission to engage, and it's just super compelling listening to somebody like Dyer, debate on that particular thing. But yeah, man, oh man, I'm totally spacing. There's like so many other things I wanted to ask you, man.
There's a lot of stuff we could talk about, especially like adjacent to debates.
Well, yeah, so I don't know if you were in the space. I think it was earlier today where we basically got muted. What was, if we can kind of go into that real quick, man, what was that about? Because you were on that stream, which is why I joined. So what's the background with that? Because I know you said you'd been kicked off of a lot of these spaces. Can you kind of go into that for a little bit?
Oh man. Yeah. So here's the thing though, is the reason why I don't like debates on X. I really don't like X as a platform because I think it's a pseudo debate platform. And the reason why I say it's only pseudo debates, you think you're really doing a debate to change something. It's like a false, I don't even know what to call it. I would just say pseudo debates. The reason why I say pseudo debates is because in a debate, there may be change that happens. You could incite some kind of catalyst to change the movement, to culture, something like that. But the problem with this is we have group chats, and in group chats, people could say their version of like fighting the war is like, I commented underneath this woman's picture, and yeah, I just hit her really good, really good. And it's like, you got to understand the reading comprehension level of America is like 8th grade. I'm like, you're really limited on like who you're going to reach. And then not to mention that a lot of the demographic isn't on Twitter or reading stuff all the time, especially the people that we have to change aren't the people that are exactly well-read. The people who are less well-read are the people, I would say, committing more crimes, murders, things like these are the people who run towards I would say entertainment to seek change, meaning like videos, things like this, social TikTok, places like this. I don't think that a reading format is going to evoke that much change by commenting underneath posts. So going back to the spaces, it's a bubble. All it is a bubble where somebody has a mute button. They have absolute control. Now, the space that I went to today, just to kind of get to the point, it was about catechumens and inquirers. The moment I started asking questions and bringing up debates, somebody came in and chimed in. They said, well, you're a catechumen. Catechumens shouldn't have an opinion on anything. Then the moment I started pushing back on this, it was asking questions because it's for catechumens and inquirers. Next thing you know, they invited me to co-host because they're like, oh, Martae, nice to see you again. I see you everywhere. Next thing you know, as soon as I started pushing back on people saying that I shouldn't have an opinion on anything, I got dropped. I got dropped to listener, and then I'm like listening, and then I think you messaged me. Somebody else messaged me and said, what happened? Did you disappear? I said, no, I'm still here. I'm listening. Because the reason why this whole space started off was because I pointed out one thing with the Orthodox Church. Mind you, I'm not speaking on behalf of the church. I'm only making a commentary through my experience. I don't think that I'm not allowed to speak on my experience in an Orthodox church. But I will say this is that when we go to coffee hour, I noticed something that's different from Protestant churches. And this is what I brought up. So whenever you go to a Protestant church, there's something that they do that Orthodox people do not do. Now, granted, I'll walk in, they'll have t-shirts flying out of tubes. They'll have a rock band, all this. Even the message that they're talking about is different from what we have, or maybe slightly off kilter. We'll see the difference in distinction. But there's one thing that they do that I wish my church or other parishes did, or parishes that I go to, is whenever I walked up to this church at that time, I got swarmed. Hey, Martae, how's it? Oh my God, what's your name? Oh, you must be new here. Nice to see you. Really generous, nice. Want you to come over. Want you to sit next to them. Really wanting to get to know you. Hey, come here. This guy's new. You should see. I don't see this when I go to Orthodox. Because the first time I went to an Orthodox church, it's extremely intimidating. You see this building, these paintings. Everybody's got this serious look on their face, mainly because they're there because liturgy is a very serious thing. Obviously, they're not going to be dancing, catching a Holy Ghost like Baptist churches I grew through. You're not going to see any of the theatrics there. People are a little bit more serious, and the show's not about the people, because the people are there because they're there to attend liturgy, and it's a really humbling experience. But when you go, you're not going to be greeted that much or whatever. And even in the narthex, when I go to coffee hour, I can sit at a table for like a whole hour by myself and nobody will say hi to me. Then I went to a different parish. Same thing happened. So I brought this up in the circle, and mind you, remember the fact that there was like nobody greeting me. There was no welcoming arms, nothing like this, right? The whole space is regarding catechumens and inquirers. Next thing you know, I started asking questions as a catechumen about debates, what I think we could do, or, I was very humble. I said, I just want to hear your opinions. I'm not right or wrong. I just want to feedback, even if it's hard criticism. I don't really care. I'll take it and listen to it. The moment I started pushing back and just in the form of asking simple questions about this, because this one person said, well, I don't put any layman over another layman. And then the other side of their mouth, they said, well, I'll let this layman speak because I believe that they're greater than mine. Then I started pointing out this contradiction. I ended up doing this because it's just a habit of mine. People started getting upset. And then when this person got upset that I brought up saints that were debating, that because we did have saints that debated, this person got even more upset. Next thing you know, I got dropped to listener. And the funny thing is, the reason why I brought that up is because the very same example I brought up that I wish that some Orthodox churches did as far as greeting people, welcoming new people. And I understand that we just don't allow anybody in because you just don't want anything in to change your whole structure. People have to be really serious. It's a really serious thing when you're coming into an Orthodox church. By the way, I'm not an authority. I'm not speaking on behalf of the church, but it's extremely intimidating. But going into a group chat of Orthodox people who have been Orthodox longer than you have can be quite intimidating as well, too. Guess what happened? I got exiled. It wasn't welcoming. The moment I started asking questions, in the title of the group chat, the space was catechumens and debate questions, something like that. But guess what happened? A catechumen came in, started asking questions, boom, booted. So it's not the first time that's happened, but I think I don't know if it's just an online thing, but that's my experience.
Yeah. Got so many things there I want to get into, but as far as and again, during the space, I was, I was kind of agreeing with you, and I've had similar experiences as well with going to an Orthodox church, checking out an Orthodox church, and getting that same feeling that you're just not welcome. Like, it's not a very pleasant experience. And which makes sense as to why, Protestant and Baptist churches here in America have, it's easy. I guess it's more palatable, for the average person to go, because it is more like a pizza party vibe when you go and you go, all right, I could definitely get used to this, and Rachel and Andrew talk about how feminism has completely, infiltrated the Baptist churches, the black churches over the decades, and how it's just become completely watered down and just completely heretical. And so I wanted to ask you though, Martae, about the catechumen process. So I was wondering if you could just walk me through, because I'm somewhat familiar with it just from hearing, hearing guys like Andrew and Dyer talk about it. But as far as that whole process, is that something that you could, if you are obviously, if you have the authority, or, if you feel comfortable, if that's something you'd like to share, what is that process like?
I'll share it. I mean, I could talk about my experience, the process. So mind you, I'm not undermining, I'm not speaking negatively of the church in a way to where I want to discourage people from coming in or going or anything like this. The same could be said for other, I would say even other religions. If you go to like the Muslim religion, they're going to be a little bit more serious, maybe not as welcome opening arm. Like, I could be speaking ignorantly on this, but I'm just saying my perception is that whenever you have something, and during the time when I was looking for I would say a religion during the time, because I was like at a crossroads, I was just upset because there wasn't a lot of discipline. There wasn't like a hard line that people set. I didn't want to go to anywhere where anything goes, oh, we just allow anything in and accept this. So when I speak about, the almost like the stoic look on people's faces when I walk into like the narthex and not outwardly just jumping to greet you or anything like that, I'm not speaking ill of that. Just saying it's absolutely negative, because I'd rather have that than the opposite of everybody just saying, hey, let's come on in and let everybody in. But then everything else be messed up. The music, scripture, it's like, so I love it how it is and wouldn't change a thing. Although I do think that people can still come up to you and say hi. That's what I'm saying. So my experience as a catechumen, and this is also along the lines of what I was just talking about. I was going to a church, a parish, for a long time. I would have probably went over a year if somebody didn't stop me, or I just happened to bump into somebody and say, hey, are you a catechumen? And I didn't know what that was. I said, well, I've just been going here to this church and I can't wait till I get baptized. And they said, well, you can't get baptized until you're a catechumen, because nobody talked to me. I didn't have anybody come up to me and talk to me. And they, I mean, it wasn't something that just happened. Like I was saying, I had realized late that you have to sign up for these classes, and then you have to enroll for Catechumen 101. And I was like, what? There's classes? And then I enrolled in these classes. I was like, so you mean to tell me if nobody ever stopped me and greeted me at the door and informed me and educated me on any of this stuff, I still would have been going like 3 years later thinking at some point I'm going to get baptized without knowing about this. Like, I don't know. I'm being honest with you. Like, so once I found out,
I didn't know any of this. This is like really good info. I didn't know any of this. Is that how
I didn't know any of this? The reason I'm glad I'm telling you about this. I didn't. So when you go to an Orthodox church, ask, because I'm not saying they won't tell you about it, but ask about it, because you shouldn't rely on people having to tell you about it like I did.
Yeah.
So
it is interesting. It is interesting that nobody came up. Yeah. It's very interesting. But to kind of go back to, I'm gish galloping a little bit, Martae, so forgive me for that. Good. But back to kind of a little bit what you were saying about how you like the fact that it is with the Orthodox churches, there is more structure. There's like a set of boundaries, and I tend to agree, man. I like the fact that, because I don't think that worship and going to church is supposed to be like a pizza party. It's like you're not there to have fun. It's like, yes, there is a social element to it, a social component to it, because it is, after all, a community. It's your church community, your church family. But when it comes to the worshiping, that's something that has to be taken seriously, and it's not just we're just all here to have a good time. There's especially in Orthodoxy, which upholds the original teachings of Jesus Christ and its church and how it was intended to be run and worshipped in. So yeah, man, I think I really like that's like that. But I think that for guys like me who are, uh, basically middle age, and now we're just now starting to learn about this. Because I went to Sunday school as a kid, right? I went to a Nazarene, Nazarene Armenian church in just outside of LA in Glendale. So, and I was used to that too, just having more of you feel like church kind of becomes a what do you call it, like a rec center, like the YMCA. You get this YMCA type vibe, but once you discover orthodoxy, you realize that that's not really what church is, and it's kind of here in America with the Protestant and Baptist sects, they've kind of watered it down to, I guess, be a little bit more palatable and consumable. But so with that being said,
just jumping off of that, I remember you had asked a question about my experience, just orthodoxy, just finishing off what I was saying.
Yeah.
I went to these classes. It was Orthodoxy 101. We talked about that. You're going to learn about the history. You're going to learn about the tradition. You're going to learn about what liturgy is. There's a lot. Who can take communion, who can't take communion, the Nicene Creed. There's a lot of this that I haven't learned before. So if I'm going to a Protestant church like I used to go to back in the day, like I'm starting to get this big gap filled in that was never talked about, because beyond Martin Luther, like that's where Christianity ended for me. It didn't go past that. So it's like, what? There was councils, people debated over what book, like I kind of had an idea over this, and I was like, well, why were these books thrown? Like, so it's like, so people had debates, people had conversation, it's like, so you're learning about all this stuff, right? And then we're learning that there's saints that we can have intercede for us. There's like, beautiful tapestry we have that we don't see in Protestant churches that look like business centers. It's just a whole different experience. So we're learning about icons. In Orthodoxy 101, 102, 103. If you have a 103, you're going to be learning about all this stuff and how important it is. And I think one of the things that stuck out to me is that, I was never told this, but I feel like it's to show me how serious this is. Like almost like somebody shaking me saying, Martae, you need to really understand what you're getting into before you get in this, because once you get in this, this is going to be for real. And that's what I got from the 101 classes.
Yeah. It's what I realized is that now I guess I should ask you this. Before you decided you wanted to pursue orthodoxy, you wanted to, become a catechumen. What was your I guess your church experience up until that point? Because I know you said as a kid you went to Sunday school, you went to a Nazarene school, but then when growing up, like high school, college, your bodybuilding years, law enforcement, throughout those times, what was kind of your relationship with the church, with God?
Well, it's funny because I feel like my relationship with the church was trash. Now, in hindsight, we look at this. So when you find out what orthodoxy is, everything else looks like the generic trash version of this. And the reason why I say this is because, so growing up, it's like there was a period when I turned pro. I was spiritual, but not religious. I became a grandmaster in right hand Reiki. I became a yoga instructor. I became a
grandmaster in what?
Right hand Reiki.
What is that?
Oh, Reiki is like a form of energy work. So I not only was doing energy work, and we were kind of like, there's a lot behind this. I
just never heard of that. That was very right hand Reiki. I'll have to Google that.
Right hand Reiki. And it's like, because we're like a battery, there's a negative side and a positive side. There's all this BS behind it. I'm just going to call it for what it is. It's a lot of BS. It's a lot of feelings. It's a lot of here's the thing. When you become spiritual, the very funny thing about the whole spiritual thing is you become a god unto yourself. That's literally what the community tells you, because you start speaking in a certain way saying, well, the universe won't allow it. It didn't happen because of the universe, right? All we're doing is taking excuses, putting it to the side because I'm the arbiter of what's right and wrong. I can't feel any guilt because I can also shelve that too. So doing all this as a spiritual guide, and I became a shaman as well too. So there's all this, a shaman, a grandmaster right-hand Reiki, which was doing kind of like healing by laying hands on people and I was a crystal master in crystal Reiki. There's all this other stuff that I just signed up for because I just wanted to become, and you know what's funny? I became more egotistical. The more certifications I had, the more knowledge about pseudo spirituality, like all this stuff just made me more egotistical. And I realized that the more certified other people became too, the more egotistical they became. It wasn't like narcissism, like they had this obsession with themselves. They had an obsession with this ideology, and they were protected and shielded by this because you couldn't tell us anything. Because if you're not going to pay me $500 for the session to talk to me, oh, it's because you're being penalized by the universe. And maybe you should think differently instead of fear letting money go, because the fear of paying me $500 is what's in your way. Like, it's like, but you see how I'm turning this into a pyramid scheme? A lot of spiritual communities, they do this all the time. So I'm really glad that I left this. But after this, I was around some gym people and I started going to Protestant churches because that started like dying at a certain point, because I started becoming more red pill during the time. Because ex broke up with me, all this other stuff. And I was like, screw the spiritual stuff because it didn't help me with this relationship. So I started becoming more red pill during the time. How I woke up was I was sitting in a field. I think it was in Sedona. There was a retreat that we were holding. And there's people that fly from Colorado, everywhere else to go to this retreat. And I'm like, there's like 17 people who I'm guiding through guided meditation. And I'm sitting there and I woke, I kind of like, you know how you daydream sometimes? I had this daydream and I thought, if there was a chariot with horses and an army that was coming down this hill, we would be decimated in 3-2 minutes. Because I looked, I was like, would there be any men to defend us? There's like 2 men, they're vegans, and they had the same bodies as the women that they were with. And I kind of like started leaving bodybuilding at this time. And I said, damn, I'm starting to wither away to look like them. If they came, there would be no defense. There's no men here to defend. If we were like 500 years in the past, we'd be decimated and wiped out. And then I started thinking, I said, well, we always talk about, divine femininity in the spiritual cult, that we're in. We never talk about divine masculinity. This is crazy. Why am I starting to talk like a woman more? It's funny because it's clicked. And it clicked so hard that I said, I'm literally turning into a bitch right now.
Yeah.
So I got up, I Rolodex, everything else, put all my clients aside and said, hey, Tim, this guy that was there, I said, Tim, you can take all my clients and have them all. I don't care. I got paid for the month. I'm out. He said, what do you mean you're out? You have another 3 classes ahead of you that we're going to do. Nah, I mean, I'm out. You can have all my clients and everything else. Left, no job, nothing. Came to a gym in Phoenix and got punched in the face. Boxing instructor. And I learned really quick that you got to protect your space, that there's breath work involved in this. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know where I got this idea from, but it just came to my head. And after that, started going to Protestant churches after that. So
now when you finally discovered orthodoxy and you started learning about it, and you kind of, you had that realization that like, this is the true church of Jesus Christ. This is the way that, we were meant to practice Christianity and all that. Did you kind of have any type of a humbling experience where you looked back at all the other stuff that you had done as far as spirituality and enlightenment, that you went, man, this is where it's at, like all that other stuff was just noise.
So what happened was, I think a lot of things can help us along the way. A few things can be true. Going to Protestant churches, this is where all these experiences, I'm so grateful because even spirituality like that has its purpose, because maybe I was supposed to experience this pseudo spirituality to understand the distinction of like what like that doesn't is meaningless to people, right? Because if you don't have Christ there, it's just nothing. It's just feel good rhetoric. Going to Protestant churches, I had the same feeling because I had the same thought. And I was in this Protestant church. They were having a rock concert going on. And then I looked and I thought about this. My mind always diverts to this because maybe I was because of my law enforcement experience, whatever that is, or doing security, something like that. I said, if something happened and there was like somebody just lighting up the church with bullets everywhere, do we have any men to defend? And I looked to my left and looked to my right. There were males, but there weren't any men. I'm like, this guy looks like with the bun in his hair. And then this guy right here with the tie-dyed shirt and the flip-flops doesn't look like they can defend shit. I'm like, I would probably be the only man in here to defend anybody. I'm like, why am I in here if there's no real warriors in here? It's like, that's what my mind diverted to. But if you go to the Orthodox Church, which they're, our church, you'll have like icons with shields, swords, all this. There's men there that are that have this stoic appearance. They're growing beards and like it's the humbling that I'm going to refer to is a video that I saw on YouTube. And I have a godfather and I don't get emotional. I don't get upset during debates. I don't get triggered at all. But I got really emotional because there was something about orthodoxy. I don't know if you know about this, but it's something that I discovered. We have monks. And the crazy thing about this is they're constantly praying, ceaselessly praying. Just
did you say what was it? What was that?
Monks. They're monks.
Monks.
Monks. MONKS.
Monks.
Monks. Yeah.
Monks. Okay.
Probably the way that I'm pronouncing it, but they're monks, right?
Okay.
I saw this and there was something that hit me. You ever get emotional? Something hits you right in the throat?
Oh, yeah.
Like me, I have a lot of pride. And as soon as it hit me in the throat, I was pissed off at myself. Like, oh, don't you let this tear out of your eye. Like, I was just like, but at the same time, I was like, I can't talk to myself like this about this. What am I doing? This is like my old ways talking. And what made me think this is one of the monks had said, like, I don't even think I'm like, he had said something like, I'm sinful myself. There's sin in me. He was referring to something around that. And I said, well, if this guy thinks he's sinning every day or he's full of fault, I'm like, what does that say about me? I'm not a monk. I don't pray endlessly, like without stopping, right? I don't do this. I'm a piece of dirt. I'm trash. Like, I'm like, this is insane. Like, there's no way that I can like think that I'm this guy that's like on the right path and I'm good, right? I can't ever call myself good. If we have monks here saying, no, I have sin, like I'm not even worthy of, it's like, and to hear this, it's like, it's really humbling because these are guys that you would see and you'd be like, there's no way. There's no way. If I look at you, you should be floating on some rock, hovering. I'm just like, this is crazy. I'm nowhere even close to even having this conversation about being a good person at all. I feel like I'm a poor excuse of a Christian right now. That was extremely humbling to me.
Yeah, man. And I should clarify. So I'm not a part of, okay. So I live in the basically just outside of Portland, Oregon. And so one of the big problems here, as you can imagine, is a lot of heresy going on with the churches. I'm not just talking about a certain sect, but you drive around and a lot of pride flags hanging up on church windows and stuff like that. So I'm still in the process of finding an Orthodox church that I want to start attending and, hopefully start the catechumen process. But one of the things that I realized, and this is something that I stopped doing once I realized it, which is I don't just tell people that, I'm Christian. If somebody asked me, "Hey, are you Christian?" What are you? I would just say it was just like a default answer, like, "Well, I'm Christian," because I'm Armenian, right? So I was born in Armenia. I grew up here on the West Coast, uh, but other than going to Sunday school when I was a kid in California, I didn't really attend church regularly. So when I realized that really for the majority, basically my whole life, and definitely my entire adult life, I've lived a very secularist lifestyle. I haven't lived like a Christian. So that's one of the things that I wanted to clarify, and then just say that as of right now, I'm really not a Christian. Like I want to get to a point in my life where I can say that confidently, because once you realize that that's just because I feel like this is very common, to be honest with you. This is a very common thing where the people will do. They may be just born into a Christian household or a Catholic or whatever, but it's kind of an empty label, right? Because you grow up and you start doing all these things, right?
It can be. Yeah.
I realized it was for me, because once I really learned about, what orthodoxy is and what it means to actually be Christian. Because I've talked to Baptists, who were just like, oh yeah, I smoke weed, I do shrooms and all this stuff. And they'll and they'll go, well, and literally they'll do like the typical, well, in the Bible, it says that, God put the plants on the earth, that whole thing. And I go, man, like this, and that's that whole problem, right? That's the whole problem of that whole sola scriptura, just a person thinking, though, I'm just going to pick up this Gideon Bible, read it, and then whatever my interpretation is, that's what the word of God is. And it's like, that's where you start getting in trouble. And so once I had that realization, I realized, like, yeah, man, I haven't lived like a Christian for, pretty much my whole life, but I do want to get to that point where, I can confidently say that. So.
Yeah, same thing. I feel like I stumble every day. I think so. One thing that's extremely important to me, I think prayer is extremely important. That's one thing that's different. I didn't pray as much as I do now.
Yeah.
By no means. I literally have like these wristbands that have I would say like the Jesus prayer on them. And then I have like this Orthodox necklace that I wear everywhere. And the reason why I have like the two wristbands is because we use our hands every day and I need reminders. I'm such a poor excuse for a Christian myself that I need reminders on my wrists, because I've been such a secularist for such a long period of time that if I reach for something, every time I reach for something and grab something, anytime I see something in my hand, I'm always seeing the Jesus prayer. I'm reminded, and I'm like, to me, it's perfect because, I was reminded of secular things, of, sexual acts on the internet, things like that. Like, because I was into, looking at content online, like lewd content all the time online. And it's like, when you become conditioned.
I've watched a lot of corn.
A lot of corn. Yeah. In watching that, it's very conditioning. So whenever I wear these wristbands on my wrist, it's like, now I'm doing the opposite. I'm conditioning myself with the Jesus prayer. Every time I grab something, I'm saying this, Lord Jesus, forgive me. It's like, so, and then not to mention that, but it's like, we can do this like 33 times. You know what I'm saying? If we have like a prayer rope. Yeah. So there's a lot of repetition, right? But the problem is that I always thought was like, we can just get into like just the numbers of saying, as long as I get 33 of these in, I'm good. And you could understand where that can lose a lot of meaning. Yeah. Well, I have to just understand that every single time I say the Jesus prayer, it's like the first time I'm saying it. It has to like hit. And my mind has to be focused on like Christ. So, I mean, prostrating is good, things like this. So it's like very new to me still. Yeah. I'm learning about all this. I am by no means like no authority to tell people what they should be doing. I'm just speaking on my experience. That's it.
No, man,
I'm learning. That's it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the honesty, man. And I'm very much on the same boat where I am trying to make prayer a regular part of my life. And a couple of the struggles that I have is when I do actually pray, it is very difficult for me to not let my mind start wandering off, start thinking about other stuff. That's one thing I'm trying to work on, is when I'm in prayer, you know, I want to just be focused on that, right? But your mind tends to wander off, especially if you're not somebody, who grew up praying, right? Like, and I think that's another problem. That's one of the challenges that guys like me, and Martae, how old are you, man?
Me, I'm 39.
Oh, you're 30 now, because you're a couple years older than me. I'm 36. I think the problem that guys like you and I have, guys that find orthodoxy, kind of later on in life, is we're so used to the secularist lifestyle of not going to church regularly, not praying regularly, not doing all the other stuff like fasting, right? Fasting is another huge part. And that's one thing that pretty much, that wasn't even until I really started learning about orthodoxy, when I realized how important fasting is a very important component of the religion, right? Like, so Wednesdays and Fridays is like a big fasting day. So I think with guys like you and me, we don't have that, that muscle memory, that conditioning of like making it, because you go, do you attend regularly? Do you attend like at least once a week church?
Yes, I go to liturgy every Sunday. And then not to mention that, but we're starting our catechumen classes again. Like, I think it's like September 4th or something like that. So once you go to a church, they'll have like a weekly or monthly email that you'll be subscribing to, and they'll tell you. Yeah. But here's the thing though, be very proactive and ask them about catechumen classes. Ask them questions. What I didn't do was, what I was doing is, I'm so used to the Protestant experience, was I was expecting somebody to tell me when these classes were, or to tell me what the process was, or any of that, becoming a new visitor. I should have did that. I probably would have been further along in the process. But here's the thing. Maybe there was a reason why I'm starting off late. Maybe I was supposed to, So I know this is the generic everything happens for a reason thing, but I have to be grateful because I found orthodoxy, period.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's never too late, man. I mean, obviously, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about how you're not used to it, but it's better late than never, in my opinion. But yeah, that's another reason why I don't like, just if somebody asks me like, hey, what are you? It takes time, in my opinion, and even though you should try to find a church as soon as you can, and if you're serious, try to get the catechumen process going. But and everybody's different, obviously, but I think that once you're able to kind of get to a point in your life where you go, all right, I'm ready to do this, that's when, and even then, I think it's going to take time, because it's just, I tried going, there was one church that I found. So for example, right, there's one church that I kind of liked. I went 2 weeks in a row, but then I didn't go again for, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks. And then I went again. And it's not like, oh, I'm not going. It's like, because you don't think about it. You don't think about like, no, this is something that you need to be doing consistently. Like, I would always have something come up and I would prioritize, which that in itself, right? It's, you're not supposed to be doing that. Like going to church at least, once a week on Sundays, going to liturgy, that's supposed to be the priority, right? I just raised my hand up and I noticed this. I had some blood drawn today, so I noticed it in my screen. But anyway, I'm not shooting up or anything. So anyway, I think just getting to that point where you can go consistently and pray consistently. So yeah, man. That's kind of that's kind of where I'm personally. So
we're both at this beginning stage where it's like, I'm not even a person that could say I have even drank milk before. I'm like such a newborn to all this. So not only can I not speak like as far as like defending the faith or orthodoxy, I can't like do an exegesis or anything. I'm not doing any of this online. I'm going to speak about my experience in Orthodoxy as somebody that doesn't know anything. Just, I want to let the audience know I'm speaking about Orthodoxy as just a person that just having experience as just a catechumen, but I won't dive into anything other than that. I don't want to, because we can get into this like area where it's like, now you are speaking on behalf of the church, or you're trying to justify, all this other.
Yeah.
I want to be very careful about that, because as a catechumen, like, we have to understand, like, that me even speaking it as a catechumen and then mentioning Orthodoxy, like, I have to stop right there. That's it. Like, I can't go any further than that. I understand that Protestants can get online and they'll talk about certain things. They'll say, well, Psalms 23 and Thomas 18 says, I can't do any of this. Yeah. I have to understand that I'm like learning the real church for the first time.
Yeah.
I am like a piece of dirt.
Yeah.
Like, I am like trash right now. I'm not like demeaning myself right now, but I'm just saying, like,
no, I know what you mean.
I am not even worthy of like saying anything on behalf of anybody. And I'm just a guy that's just a lowly nobody. And that's how I'm approaching it. So,
yeah. Well, that's like doing with what, like, Nala Ray, if you're familiar with her.
Oh, good Lord.
It's like,
oh, man.
she was in the sex work industry for years, and then all of a sudden, now she's a Christian and she can just get on podcasts and start telling other men what they need to be doing. It's like no, that's not how it works. Like, it comes with time and actual discipline, and especially as a woman, you're not supposed to be saying shit. So yeah, man. Well, I think that's a good point to move on, if if you feel like it's appropriate, because we did cover quite a bit. There's something else I wanted to kind of get into you with, if you want to do that.
I do want to mention something, though. There's a distinction that we have to point out. Nala Ray, like, let's say she does speak on cultural issues. As far as like her viewpoints on relationship problems, things like this. Now, the issue that many have with her is now she has a ministry. That's the issue. And then, not to mention that she is a woman proclaiming to have a ministry. That's the issue. Right. It's not that she's speaking on men's problems or anything like that. I think people could care less about that. They'll drown that out. They'll say, well, it's a non sequitur. Who cares? It's just another woman talking about. But when she's correcting other men and then saying she has a ministry, that's a whole different thing. And also, another caveat to that was when we talked about her being a sex worker, I also have a history doing sex work in the past too. I used to do solo. I was a solo performer. I didn't do anything with anybody else. And a lot of this solo work was sold to gay communities, believe it or not.
You've lived quite the life, Martae.
I know, it's
quite
crazy.
The life.
I've never done anything with anybody on camera, never in real life with, anything that's gay, or I don't gross. I don't do anything, but it was sold to that community, even though like it's just material I did by myself. Yeah. But it's like, there's a lot that I got into as far as like, being a secularist, but I can say that my body count is low. It's like,
well, that's good. That's good.
Low. Yeah.
So if we could do kind of a bit of a change in pace, and I want to talk about and kind of get your thoughts, kind of similar to the Nala Ray thing, but a little bit different. So I have a huge fight to pick with the and if you remember in the stream earlier today, in the space that we both basically got kicked out of, I started getting a little bit when I was talking with the broad on, I can't remember her name. She started following me and I followed her back, but
Maiden something. No, none of them followed me, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, screw that guy.
So it got a little bit contentious because I have a big fight to pick with female Christian conservative influencers and Candace Owens being at the top of that list. So that's, what we kind of got contentious about earlier today. And so the point that I was trying to make with her was that I believe that women like Candace and Tommy Lahren and Leela Rose, if you know who that is, she's been on whatever. I think that they're doing a massive disservice, and I think that they are actually doing a lot more harm than good, because I don't think that they're doing their part in promoting young girls and young women to prioritize. And I'd love to get your take on this. I don't think that they're doing enough. Quite frankly, I don't even think they've done anything at all. I don't know if Candace Owens or Leela Rose or Tommy Lahren, I don't know if they've ever done a segment or a video on the huge issue that we have, which is our declining birth rate and the fact that women are choosing to not have kids at all, or they're choosing to prolong having, having a marriage and kids, and they end up having less kids because of that. And obviously this is stuff that Andrew and Wilson have talked about at nauseum. And so I think women like Candace really need to be doing a lot more in bringing light to this issue and telling young girls, especially if their audience, if Candace's audience, I would imagine she must have hundreds of thousands, if not more, young women, young conservative Christian women who look up to her, right? But Candace, I mean, they're not doing their job, in my opinion, in telling women like, hey, you really need to be prioritizing marriage and kids over a career, because in the long run, that's what's going to matter. And in fact, if you do claim to be a Christian conservative, it is actually your duty. Like, as a woman, we have a duty to be fruitful and multiply, right? We're supposed to have, as Christian women, we're supposed to have children. And I just don't think, based on what I'm seeing online, on Twitter and YouTube and all these interviews and podcasts, they are not doing the most important job, in my opinion, which is telling young women, hey, get married, have kids. Because I think that a lot of young women, a lot of conservative young women, for example, who might look up to Candace, they'll look at her and say, yeah, this is what I want to do. I'm going to be like Candace. I'm going to start a YouTube channel. I'm going to, start talking about politics and Christian ethics and that, and go. And so they start doing that, and that turns into their career. They want to pursue the influencer life, right? The quote unquote Christian conservative, female influencer life. And it's like, I feel like they'll get into a certain age and they'll go, whoa, I just wasted my prime years as far as child rearing and, my sexual marketplace value being the highest on, becoming this Christian conservative influencer, but I don't have a family to show for it. And so I think that unless they really start pushing this idea of duty for women, the duty to have children, the duty to, get married and submit to your husband, I think they're just doing more harm. And like somebody like Leela Rose, where she's all about the fight against abortion, right? She's like, pro-life, and she bases it again on her Christian values. And I think she's a Catholic, if I'm not mistaken, but she's constantly on Twitter, right? I've been calling her out on Twitter. I've been, replying to her post. She's constantly posting something about, abortion and all this stuff, and how, it's murder and all, and which that's all great, right? I think that that's great. That's great work. But I keep replying to every time she posts something. I keep trying to hammer this point home with her, which is, hey, like, what's the point? What's the point of you fighting this war against abortion if you're not going to simultaneously tell young women that they need to prioritize marriage and children over a career, right? So it's like, you're kind of like filling a jug with water where there's a hole at the bottom. You know what I mean? It's like the important thing is telling young girls, because women aren't going to listen to us, right? Young women aren't going to, because of the feminized culture that we have, right? I mean, it's a feminine dominating culture that we live in.
Like, I think that there's something I've been listening for a little while, and what I want to say is, I'm not trying to tell you who you should have beef with or not.
Sure.
But I'll tell you, with me, I don't have beef with Lila Rolls or Candace Owens because I don't think that I can change their hearts and minds. What I mean by saying that is I'm going to be drowned out by the thousands of people who already messaged them. I'm not saying what you're doing is for naught. But what I am saying is that right now, as a low-level debater, I'll call myself a low-level debater, I can debate these other influencers and OnlyFans people. And, like I was debating a professor or a poli-sci professor a few days ago and other people, right? I think that I can at least move the needle on culture with people I can actually interact with, and I can have an open dialogue with, debate. And like you were saying, you said you've been trying to reach out into the ether with these people and you're not getting a response. Well, I would say that, if we can debate and we can contact people that want to actually engage with us, like we can actually shift the needle. And another reason why I'm not going to rail Candace or Lila Rolls on them, because it's like I would just be making like a small argument, like saying, yeah, but you're not doing everything of what I want you to do. You're just fighting abortion, but you need to also do all this other stuff. I would then myself turn my attention on to people who are doing nothing. In fact, not only doing nothing, but completely opposed to my agenda or Christendom or any of the Christian ethical tenets that we have. Those are the people that I'm going to be more ardent fighting more than the Lila Roses and all those other people. Because even though your Candace Owens, who had 2 babies, by the way, and is producing a family structure and has a husband, I think that sometimes by example, we can lead without having to tell the whole message. But I would just say, not for you. You can do whatever you want, but I would divert my attention if I was trying to find somebody to hone in on and practice on people who are actually moving the culture. Maybe look at who's closest to your level or whoever's going to engage you.
Yeah.
Has a lot of people. If you can get those people, start debating those and maybe try to win hearts and minds on that side, and then slowly start climbing your way up. So that way, one day your name has a little bit more weight. They've seen you. Things are doing. You see what I'm saying? So now I'm going to get the attention of the Candace Owens and have dialogue with people like that.
Yeah, and that makes total sense. And I think it would be kind of I should clear this up. It would be kind of stupid of me to expect that like Candace or Lila, they're going to reach out to me and be like, hey, nobody, that you have 100 followers on Twitter and you just started a YouTube channel. It would be silly of me to think that they're going to be like, all right, hey, let's do an interview, let's talk, or let's do a debate. But for me, I think just with Twitter, because I have gone every time I post something, every time I post a reply like that to one of their posts, I get a ton of likes. And so I think it would be nice though to see people that have kind of an established name. And I understand how it goes, because this kind of gets into that whole infighting, but to kind of not necessarily push back, but to kind of, I guess, explain myself a little bit more. I hear what you're saying about, Candace and Lila. They're doing good work, right? They are doing good things. They are, for the most part, they're kind of sending the right
things.
Yeah. Obviously, they're not Orthodox, right? I'm pretty sure that Candace is Catholic and Lila, I'm pretty sure, is Catholic. But in my opinion, I think that their main, and again, because this goes back to that whole that man and woman thing in the church, where women aren't supposed to be talking, they're not supposed to be preaching to men or trying to tell them what to do. I think that would be nice if the Christian conservative female influencers kind of realized that, hey, this is a far more important thing, and for us as women to kind of recognize. And I guess that's the other thing that I wanted to address is we don't actually know, like, has Candace or Lila or Tommy Laren, have they actually stated their opinion about this matter? Like, do we actually know? Obviously, Candace has been around for years now. Same with, Lila. Have they ever actually in an interview or in an episode? And I think it's really important for us to know. Like, I really think it's important for us to know where they stand on this. Do they believe, like Megyn Kelly, for example? Megyn Kelly said, like, outright, like, young women should prioritize their careers over marriage and family. And so I want to know, like, I don't think that it's unfair for us to want to know from somebody like Candace, like, hey, do you think that it's not just an option if young girls want to pursue marriage and children from a young age, like, from like their early to mid 20s, or if it's an obligation, it's a duty if you want to be, live a Christian lifestyle and, follow Christian ethics. Is it a duty, in their opinion, for women to prioritize, from a young age? I think we should know that, because they have such a large audience and such a large reach. And it's like, well, if you're claiming to be Christian, I'd personally like to know, like, what her stance on that is. I don't know if she's ever actually clarified.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
And my question goes like this, and I want to ask you specifically a question. You have two choices. You can either have Candace Owens and Lila Rose say, hey, you should prioritize relationships over career, and your marriage over career and kids, right? You can have them say this once. Or you can have OnlyFans workers and sex workers just completely stop what they're doing and stop saying, wet ass PUSSY in rap songs, and then just paying TikTok videos and stripping on TikTok video, borderline doing all this stuff. Which one would you choose? You're right to pick the other one or the other. I just want to see your mind's at.
So just so I'm clear, I'm picking between whether or not influencers like Candace and Lila, if they could one time tell young girls that they should prioritize marriage.
Let's say they heard you. They said, Aftermath told me that I have to say this, and I finally heard him out of the thousands of messages I get. I'm just going to say it one time on the air, but then I'm going to continue as if I'm doing my normal programming, right? Or would you rather, like, only OF workers and other people just change their belief and just stop doing what they're doing? Like a few.
All OF workers? Like all?
No, like, let's say 4 OF workers are going to stop doing OF, and then you could just have Candace Owens just say it one time, and then she's like, okay, back to what I was saying. Anyways, like, Putin this and that, whatever, Palestine shouldn't be this and that, or whatever, they're having the conversation.
I think I'm still going to have to go with them saying that. And my reasoning for it is, if Candace were to tweet out, like right now, if she were to tweet out, young women should prioritize marriage and children over their careers, I think that she would get so much backlash from that, from covert Christian conservative feminists, that she would be forced to elaborate on that, and not just on Twitter, but I think she would be obligated to make a video or a series about that and talk about, like, hey, we have a serious birth rate problem in the country, in the world, and we as Christian women, even if we didn't have a declining birth rate, we still, as Christian women, we are called, like, that is one of our duties. That's something that we need to prioritize in order to keep the species going. We're supposed to be fruitful and multiply. And in order for us to do that, we have to, prioritize career and children. Yeah.
So I'll ask you a question. because I just want to kind of like walk with you on this. Do you think the people that are watching Candace Owens are easily propagandized? Like, meaning like, okay, let me rephrase this. Do you think the people that are watching Candace Owens more articulate than the regular population, probably more well-read than the average OF worker, and probably like somebody that's already bought into Candace Owens's message?
I would, if I had to guess, I would assume that a large portion of Candace's followers are probably, probably women from, I think that there's a lot of men that follow her as well. I think there's a lot of like Catholic Protestant men that, kind of like Matt Walsh type, not like Matt Walsh as far as like IQ and intellect, because Matt Walsh is a pretty, intelligent guy. But I think most of the people that follow her are probably, as far as like normie, they're probably like just regular IQ people. And
then my next question is, so the OF worker that's twerking on Instagram, that's twerking on TikTok, in making regular, probably like soft corn, I would say content on social media. Do you think that the people that follow them are highly intellectual people, or at least mediocre intellect, like at least medium?
Yeah, probably. But obviously, they're going to be a lot more, most likely going to be a lot more degenerate, right? Probably secularist, like progressive.
They're degenerate,
right?
but as far as susceptibility, do you think that they're going to be lower in reading comprehension level, lower in intellect, things like this?
Probably low. Yeah, probably on the lower end, I would probably assume.
Good. Okay, now that I got you to answer that, I just have another question. Who do you think is going to be more easier to influence through social media? Stupid people or smart people?
Yeah, I mean, I could see your point. I'm like, stupid people probably a lot easier. But
right.
Well, but for example, and I get your point, and I understand what you're getting at. That makes sense. But I would respond to that by saying that I'm wanting a specific, because I don't think that 100% of Candace's audience are, women from the age of, say 18 to 25. I think she has, I'm sure there's plenty of men and from all different ages that, follow her. And then also, but I think it is probably mostly women, like maybe, 60, maybe 55, 60% women. And so a lot of them are going to be younger. I'm wanting her to reach that demographic, right? Like the younger female crowds. And we know that women are more susceptible to propaganda and being convinced, right? So I guess it could kind of work both ways, but I mean, ultimately it would be nice to have it all, right? I mean, it would be nice if OF fans could kind of wake up and be like, hey, this is not the way to do it. And hopefully all of their fans that were thinking maybe about, starting an OF would think twice. And then it would be nice if, Candace could, talk more about just women having a duty to be fruitful and multiply. And the way you do that is, you prioritize, I keep saying it, but you prioritize marriage and children. So I don't know if that kind of answers that, but
I think the reason why I say that, the reason why I pose that question is because I think the people that are bought into staving off kids for later are your more intellectual people. And I'll point this out. When you look at the lower income class people, they're having most of the babies. Right. They're not only having most of the babies out of wedlock, not getting married, running the streets and doing all this. It's like they're outproducing the smart people who are saying that I'm going to delay it till later. I'm a corporate woman. I'm just going to have this briefcase and hold it off later. I think that two things can be true. I think that we could talk to the people that are smart, that are moving the needle, but it's going to be a little bit tougher because here's the thing. You have to have a better argument And you're going to have a lot of people up there at that echelon who are really intelligent people, or I would say more intelligent than the dum-dums following OF chicks. And they're probably going to say, yeah, I know, but I'm going to delay it anyways. And it's like, you're going to have a lot of people that aren't going to be willing to hear that argument, but you're also going to have the opposite side saying, yeah, but I already have 5 kids by 3 different baby daddies. So here's the thing that I'm saying. We're focusing a lot on the women, but I would say a lot of these women, you want them to be like in your proximity, the people that you're trying to affect and work with. Now, we know that Candace Owens isn't going to be readily available. And I'm going back to that point. Yeah. I would just stick to proximity and just say, hey, you know what? Until I meet Candace Owens and I have my recommendation for me to say, hey, I'm going to slide in her DMs and say, hey, I think you should talk about the birth rate. I think we should talk about prioritizing marriage before career. All these other things we could do that. But right now, I think the biggest thing is to work on proximity. Like, who's in your proximity, who's the closest to you, meaning like who you can get in contact with through doing debates online, the spaces, everything. Who's going to respond to you? Because Candace may not even respond to you. We were just talking about that. Yeah. So it's all proximity. If you can affect those people and they can actually respond to you with your approach, I think that's a great start. But I think when we start, remember what you said, one thing at a time when we come to Orthodox Church. Yeah. I think when we have that approach with people, this should be kind of like a good universal rule of thumb. One thing at a time. Let me get to the lowest rung people and then work on my tier levels like a video game. We're starting to work our way up.
I can concede to that. I can definitely concede to that. And I think you are right. I think that would probably be the better course, the better path. So, and what's funny is I actually, hopefully here in a couple of days, I will be joining another space. Cause I met this other, I'm forgetting her name, but she messaged me after we got done with the space. This wasn't the one earlier. This is like from a couple of days ago. I think it was on Uncle Tom's space. But anyway, she's going to hopefully here in a few days invite me to a space that where that discussion is going to be. There are going to be discussions like that. And so I'm definitely looking forward to that. So, and that's, more on my, more on kind of like my level, just a newbie, kind of somebody getting started. So yeah, man, I definitely take what you're saying seriously. So, and I do agree. It makes sense, just kind of can't just
start up with something attainable, what's within your reach, start up because here's the thing though. When you start off within what's in your reach, you could start sharpening your tools with these individuals and refining your arguments better too. Before you get to your Candace Owens, because what you're talking about is like skipping all these levels. If you really think about it, and then going to somebody who's really, she's halfway decent at debate, and it's like, let's start working with these people first. Because here's the thing: if you're going to approach her with this and tell her why she should do things, what if she pushes back? You see what I'm saying? But let's work on the pushback at the low rungs before we start working our way up. So that way, by the time you do get to your Candace Owens and people like this, your arguments are not only more refined, you're better, and you're more skilled craftsman at what you do.
And I do have a lot to, unfortunately, I think one of the things that makes a great, like an okay to good debater and like a great debater is memory recall, like, and information retention. And unfortunately, I don't have that. I don't know if it's just, I was a pretty average, kid growing up, but my memory has never been that great. And then, years of just being an idiot with, certain substances, I think has kind of fried my brain a little bit. But no, I have a long way to go before I can get to that, those debate, like whether it's like Andrew Wilson or Jay Dyer type debating, not necessarily on Christian apologetics, but just like to that sphere or even to yours, because I've seen multiple of your debates now, and I can tell just by watching you speak that you're not like a newbie to this at all. Even just kind of listening to our conversation throughout this past, like what we've been going now for almost 2 hours. Like,
well, here's the thing. you're going to develop yourself regardless. If you're in a boxing ring and you keep sparring, you're going to get better at punching, right? So I think, and I just had a recent conversation with Andrew. I told him, I just got to put the reps in, man. Like, keep doing this. Like, so if I keep doing debates, when we talk about recall, a lot of this is just pattern recognition. Like, you could start seeing things before they come. So a lot of this, what appears like recall, sometimes isn't just recall. Sometimes I've seen this before. This guy's doing the same stupid thing. And then to somebody else, that could just look like recall. No, it's because you've been here before 1,000 times. And then when you're in the same fight, now you know this like the back of your hand. Now it's like somebody says this, you counter it with that, and you have a great counter. And you're just getting better at countering. So now there's a part of it that looks like recall that isn't recall. It's just because you're getting better at doing the thing that you're practicing. That's it.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. What are there any books that you're currently reading or have read that kind of help you with when you debate? Not necessarily a book on debating, but I mean, just as far as, because right now, I'm still reading Occult Feminism, right? And I ordered Humanist Manifesto 1 and 2. I ordered the Communist Manifesto. So, there it is. There it is. I got my copy here somewhere. But yeah,
I'll say this. I want everybody to go get Rachel Wilson's book, Occult Feminism. I also have the audio book as well, too.
Yep.
This is a great book to get. Go pick up your copy right now so Andrew Wilson can buy some more ammo.
Yeah. Yep. That's right. So I'm reading that, and then like I said, Humanist Manifesto 1 and 2, and then the Communist Manifesto. But and that's the other thing, man, is like, you got to read these primary sources. And so, you're right. It does take time to, get up to, to get to black belt from white. So, So Martae, we have been going now for almost 2 hours. I think, I don't know. Unless there's some other stuff that maybe you want to get into, I'm okay with kind of wrapping it up here.
Yeah, I got some closing remarks.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
One thing I do want to say in closing is I am writing a book in about 3 months. I'm hoping to try to get it published.
Oh, shit. Okay.
I did talk to Rachel. She said she would help write a foreword. Rollo Tomasi said he would contribute to writing the foreword. I don't know if you know who Rollo Tomasi is.
Mm-hmm.
I was just doing an interview on his podcast, The Rational Male, recently. Mm-hmm. So I'm writing this book. A lot of this is on my Google Docs, and it's like probably like, I don't know, maybe like 250 pages. It's just, so a lot of this is on my Google Docs. I have it written down, but it's the female warrior fallacy. Mm-hmm. And the book goes over a lot of propaganda that was pushed on women, meaning like we don't have the Celtic warriors. They never existed. So Xena Warrior the Princess was just some fictitious story that we got, and we designed this character. We have Amazons, right? They never existed. It was just a cleanup crew. It goes into everything else. We go into the military branches, special forces. Are there female Navy SEALs? No, they don't even exist. It goes into the scandal with the female Army Rangers that we had, where they were recycled 1 million times and allowed to get permission to fail till they passed, which no man's ever gotten this. So it's like there's this big fallacy that's going on with women right now. And it's like we've had songs called I'm a Survivor, whatever that is, by Beyonce. And it's like we're telling women that they can be so independent that they're now the modern replacement for men. So now it's like we're telling women that they could fight, that they can be soldiers, do everything that men can do. Well, this warrior subsect of culture, we're telling you women they can be warriors, is such a fallacy, and it's destructive in its nature to women. So when you think about feminism, this is right along the alley of what they're talking about, the lines of what they're talking about. And this is very harmful to women because you'll never have women fight men in a cage. But how do we have this happen? The book goes into all this.
So this will hopefully be published in the next 3 to 4 months, you said?
Yes, 3 to 4 months.
Okay. Okay, but what you have written, so I'm not even sure, man. I'm so bad with the text. So some of what you were showing me is available on your Google Docs, or
Well, no, I have it on my Google Docs. It's like it's you know how you write things down on a piece of paper. It's the same thing as that. I just have to just keep double check my sources, because what's going to happen is once I put this book out, everybody and their mom is going to want to try to debunk, attack. I'm going to have a target on my back.
Yeah.
And I better be damn well ready to defend this book when I put it out. So,
well, I look forward to it, man. I will be one of the first ones to buying a copy, man. So,
that's awesome, man. Thanks.
Yeah, man. So, well, we should definitely. I want to thank you, Martae, man. This was like my first, first live interview. It's my first interview I've done. So
awesome,
I want to thank you for being the first person for my channel. And I hope to. I'm sure I'll be bumping into you again in the the Twitter Spaces and all that.
Very kind of you. Kind words.
Yeah. So and hopefully we can collab again, man. But yeah, thank you, man. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, sounds good, man. I would just say Christ is God before you get off of here. And also not only that, but if you want to become a better debater, Andrew is selling a course that's pretty amazing. I would go look into Debate University. He's got that now online. Just follow me on the Real Mighty Mouse on Instagram, and also the same thing, Martae Ruelas on X. I'm there too as Mighty Martae. So follow me on YouTube. I got my YouTube channel, and the link will be in the description afterwards. So
sounds good, man. All right.
Thanks for having me on, brother.
Thank you, Martae.
All right. Take care.
All right.